He just told her, "You're not my child," in the middle of her birthday dinner. If he knew this for years, why choose this moment unless he plans it?
You're not my child. He said it like he was passing the salt. We were halfway through my 22nd birthday dinner, fancy restaurant, candles lit, my whole family around the table, and suddenly, nobody was eating anymore. My fork just stopped in the air. Every eye shifted to me, waiting for my reaction like this was part of the entertainment. I laughed at first. I actually laughed. "What?" I said, thinking he had to be joking because who says something like that in front of everyone? But he didn't smile. He leaned back in his chair, completely calm, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment all night. "Ask your mother," he added, taking a sip of his drink. And that's when I turned to her, but she wouldn't even look at me. Everything tilted. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The silence stretched so long it started to feel loud. "Mom," I said, quieter this time, like lowering my voice would somehow make this less real. "What is he talking about?" She kept her eyes on her plate. Her hands were folded too neatly in her lap, like she was holding herself together. No reaction, no denial, nothing. That's when something shifted in my chest, because if this was a joke, she would have shut it down immediately. If it was a misunderstanding, she would have corrected him. That's who she'd always been, soft, but not silent like this. Across the table, my aunt glanced between them, clearly uncomfortable. My younger cousin stopped pretending to scroll on her phone. Even the waiter, who had just approached with another round of drinks, hesitated and slowly backed away. And my dad? He looked completely at ease, like this wasn't a bomb he'd just dropped, like this was a conversation he'd already had 100 times in his head. "You heard me," he said, setting his glass down with a soft clink. "You're old enough now." Old enough for what? My heart started pounding, but I forced myself not to look away from him. "Old enough to hear what?" I asked. He didn't answer me. He just tilted his head slightly toward my mom again, like she was supposed to do the work for him. "Say something," I snapped, turning back to her. My voice cracked, and I hated that it did. Hated that in this moment, in front of everyone, I sounded like a scared kid instead of a 22-year-old who deserved a straight answer. Her lips parted, like she was about to speak. Then she shook her head. Just once. Small. Almost invisible. "Not here," she whispered. "Not here?" I let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "Not here? He just said I'm not his child in the middle of my birthday dinner. Where exactly would be a better place?" A couple of people shifted uncomfortably. No one stepped in. No one told him to stop. And that was the worst part. No one was surprised enough to defend me. My dad exhaled slowly, like he was the one being inconvenienced. Then he reached into the inside pocket of his jacket, calm, deliberate, and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He placed it right in the center of the table, between my plate and his. "I didn't want to do this," he said, even though nothing about him looked reluctant. "But you deserve to know." I stared at the paper, then back at him. "Know what?" He tapped it once with his finger. "I've known for years." The words didn't land all at once. They sank in slowly, like something heavy dropping through water. "Known what?" I asked, but my voice came out thinner than I meant it to. No one touched the food anymore. The candles had burned lower, wax dripping down the sides like time was still moving even though everything else had stopped. My dad didn't answer right away. He just watched me. And that look, it wasn't anger. It wasn't even disappointment. It was distance. Like he'd already separated himself from me a long time ago, and this was just the official announcement. Growing up, I'd felt that distance without ever being able to explain it. He showed up for my siblings, school events, birthdays, little things that mattered. With me, it was always optional, occasional. Like I was an obligation he fulfilled just enough to avoid questions. I used to tell myself I was imagining it. Now I wasn't so sure. "Open it," he said, nodding toward the paper. I didn't move. Instead, I looked at my mom again. Did you know about this? I asked. Her shoulders tensed. She still wouldn't meet my eyes. Dahlia, she started softly. That hesitation, that 1 second too long, that told me everything wasn't as simple as he was making it sound. Did you know? I pressed. Before she could answer, my dad cut in sharply. She's always known. And then he pushed the paper closer to me. Go ahead, he said. The paper slid closer until it touched the edge of my plate, picking up a smear of frosting from the cake I hadn't even gotten to taste yet. My hands didn't want to move, but everyone was watching, waiting, so I reached for it. The fold was stiff, like it had been opened and closed too many times already. I unfolded it slowly, my eyes scanning the page without really understanding what I was seeing at first. Numbers, dates, clinical language. Then one line locked everything into place. Paternity, 0.0% probability. My stomach dropped. A quiet murmur rippled across the table. My aunt leaned back slightly, covering her mouth. My cousin whispered, "Oh my God." I looked up at him. "You did a test?" I asked. "Years ago," he said, completely steady. "I needed confirmation." Confirmation. Like I was a suspicion, a problem to solve. "And you just sat on it?" My voice was rising now. "You let me grow up thinking." "I let you grow up with a roof over your head," he cut in. "Don't twist this into something it's not." The room tightened again. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice like he was sharing something reasonable. "I stayed," he said, "out of obligation."
But if he had known it for years, why bring out a paternity test at her birthday dinner? What exactly is he trying to prove here?
Obligation. That word hit differently. I turned to my mom so fast, my chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Is that true?" I demanded. She shook her head immediately, small, urgent. "He's not telling you everything." That was the first time her voice had any force behind it, and it cut straight through the tension. My dad's jaw tightened, just slightly, but I saw it. "What does that mean?" I asked, my eyes locked on her now. For a second, she looked like she might actually say it. Her fingers gripped the edge of the table, knuckles pale, like whatever she was holding back was heavier than this entire moment. And then, "She's confused," my dad said flatly. "Don't start twisting things." "No," my mom said, shaking her head, louder this time. "I'm not." That snapped something in the room. People shifted. My aunt leaned forward. My cousin stopped pretending not to listen. Because now this wasn't just an announcement. This was a crack. I felt it too. Pieces of things I didn't fully understand starting to line up in the back of my mind. Random comments, avoided conversations, the way my dad always shut down anything about my birth, my early years. And something else, a memory I hadn't thought about in years. My mom once mentioning, "We had help," when I asked why there were no baby photos of him holding me in the hospital. At the time, I didn't question it. Now it felt different. "What aren't you saying?" I asked, quieter, but sharper. My dad exhaled, irritated now. "It doesn't matter how it happened. The result is the same." If it didn't matter, why did he bring it here? I pushed my chair back and stood up. "I'm not sitting down until someone tells me the truth." My mom finally looked straight at me, tears in her eyes, but something else too. Resolve. "You were planned," she said. A pause, then, "just not the way he wanted." "You were planned, just not the way he wanted." The words didn't explode. They settled, heavy, precise. "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice steadier now, even though everything inside me wasn't. My mom took a breath, like she'd been holding it in for years. "He couldn't have children," she said, glancing briefly at him before looking back at me. "We tried for a long time. Doctors, treatments. Nothing worked." I blinked. Once. Twice. "And then?" I asked. "We made a decision," she continued. "Together, we used a donor." The table went completely still. I turned slowly toward my dad. "You knew?" I asked. His silence answered before he did. "It was your idea at one point," my mom added quietly. "You signed the papers. You were there." Something cold and sharp slid into place in my chest. "You chose this," I said to him, Not loudly, not angrily, just clearly. His expression hardened. I agreed to it, he corrected. That doesn't mean I had to pretend forever. Pretend. That word landed harder than anything else. I'm not something you pretended, I said. I'm your daughter, or I was, until you decided to turn my birthday into this. No one interrupted, not anymore, because now it was obvious. This wasn't about truth. This was about him wanting control, wanting to rewrite something he had already agreed to. You don't get to erase me just because I don't share your DNA, I added. For the first time, he didn't have a response ready. I looked around the table, at faces that had watched me grow up, people who now couldn't even meet my eyes the same way. Then I picked up my bag. I'm done, I said simply. No yelling, no scene, just final. I walked out of the restaurant alone, the sound of the door closing behind me louder than anything that had been said inside. That night, I blocked his number. By the end of the week, I moved out. The fallout came quietly. Calls from relatives, messages asking for both sides. Some tried to defend him, others didn't. My mom reached out eventually, on her own, without him. We talked, slowly, carefully. But him? He never apologized. He just stopped bringing it up. Like if he didn't say it again, it didn't happen. But it did. And months later, on another important day, surrounded by people I chose, I realized something that didn't feel heavy anymore. He didn't lose a daughter that night. I saw him clearly for the first time and chose not to stay. And that changed everything.
How many people sit through normal family dinners, not realizing someone else had already rewrite their place in the family, but hasn't said it out loud yet? Let me know in the comment section.